Go ahead and tell me your name and your title, and the year you graduated.
Yeah. I'm Beau Dudley. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Affairs at WNL. I graduated in 1974. Worked for 2 years and came back to the law school, graduated in 1979.
And so when you were at Washington Lee, you attended a mock convention.
I sure did.
Which year was that?
1972. I can almost remember it. That was the year in which our group decided to pick Ted Kennedy instead of the eventual nominee, George McGovern.
And Ted, and Ted Kennedy was not on the ballot, as I recall.
No, I think that's right, although you can appreciate my memory is not crystal clear here some 40 years later, but I think that's right, and I have some memory that it took us 6 or 7 rounds of balloting to get there, and I've tried to remember exactly what caused that. I can't, but it was a raucous, long-running convention that wound up picking Kennedy.
And that is one of the few times that the students were wrong.
Well, I'm sorry you brought that up, but yes, it is. It's actually a good story that's best told by Roger Mudd, who was on the scene when the change occurred. But in the day, pre-roughly 1950, the convention was purely a social exercise, and it was known mainly for being lively and social. The change was to create a research-based exercise and to make it more authentic and based on the view of people in the know politically around the country. So from that point to this one, the record has been remarkably accurate, but we were one of the ones that managed to foul it up.
Let's see, Jimmy Carter was the keynote speaker that year, and that was a big deal. Was it a big deal at the time?
Not sure. I certainly remember that, but my sense is that, like other things about mock convention, you don't really realize how unique, how big, how impactful it is at the time as much as you do later in looking back. And now it's one of those, wow. And you look at Carter's picture on the podium and the other cavalcade of speakers that we've had, and it's really very impressive. I'm not sure our group of students really grasped that at the time.
That was 4 years before he was Jimmy Who. I mean, it was 4 years before he was president, so he was, what, governor?
I think he was governor of Georgia, and people knew that, and otherwise sort of ho-hum, isn't that great, we got the governor of Georgia to come, but clearly, like the rest of the country, no earthly idea what would happen to Jimmy Carter 4 years hence.
Let's see. What value or meaning did the mock convention have for you and your fellow students? You sort of addressed that a little bit already. Seeing how hard the real leaders worked, aware that no other school is doing anything like this. First brush with the convention, and then when you see it on TV, you're struck by the similarities.
Yeah. One of the interesting things is that your particular time as a student at that convention matters. And what that means is that in my year, I was a sophomore at Washington and Lee, and so the leadership positions and most of the state chairs and the people handling the financial aspects were all upperclassmen. I think it's fair to say for the rest of us, we didn't really know what we were getting into. I mean, you know about MockCon, and here it comes, and you sign up, and you're then sort of swept away by this huge, extravagant event. But I don't think you really appreciate either its authenticity or the impact that it has on a WNL experience until later. It's like other things. When you look back and appreciate the fact that it really is a one-off. It's the only one of this size and scope and sort of legitimacy that you know of. Your pride sort of increases, and you feel great to have been a part of it. And then I do remember after graduation, you begin to watch national political conventions. And there's this moment or two when the reporters are roving the hall and the microphones are out and the gavel is banging and the red, white, and blue is all over the place, and you're struck literally right there at how similar the MockCon experience was in Doremus Gymnasium at W&L those years ago. It's really impressive.
What's really struck me looking back through the photographs and talking to people is how, as with the real political conventions, it's really a reflection of the times. 1972 was completely different than 1992. I mean, can you talk a little bit? I'm assuming you've attended other conventions, mock conventions over the years.
Surely, and the ebb and flow, both politically and student-wise, is very interesting. It's easy to forget the climate on this campus and certainly nationally from the late 60s well into the 70s. I remember haircuts, for example, a little different than they were 10 and 20 years later. The political view of the student body was probably more liberal at that time than it has been at other times. We were coming out of the height of the Vietnam War experience. There were people on campus who had vivid memories of Washington and Lee being the Southeastern Regional Coordinating Campus for the war protest movement. Who knew, right? But yes, the politics change, and of course one of the great things about the convention is it's always about the party out of power, so you have to sort of meld the whole experience to capture that Republican to Democrat and back and forth, and I think it's one of the things that keeps it as lively as it is.
Let's talk a little bit, this kind of ties into it, the parade over the years. We've witnessed a few interesting parades ourselves. In the old days, it was more crazy, slightly off color, rowdy. I believe I saw somewhere, I think it was on the other sheet, that your parade, the 72 parade, was the first time that women were involved.
I think that's right. Again, not a vivid memory of that, but the parade really was a centerpiece. If you think high school homecoming float construction on steroids, you might sort of capture it. Huge fun, lots of late nights building whatever crazy thing you were going to bring down Main Street, and really huge anticipation about that event. To be honest, it was a laissez-faire time in the life of the university, so there wasn't much supervision, guidance, certainly no regulation of what could pass for a float in plain view on Main Street. And I don't remember it crystal clear, but I think it's accurate that it was that great balance between we want to get right to the edge, and we want to be a little snarky, we want to have a lot of fun, we want to have crazy costumes that people will remember and laugh out loud about, but not really crossing that line into just abject bad taste and making people run from the sidewalks. But it was very lively. Like other things, you develop an institutional memory that's different from what really happened in your parade. So when I talk to alumni about their experiences, almost every one of them will say, "Oh yeah, and you remember when that elephant came down Main Street?" Well, I don't know how many parades actually had an elephant, but the parade has its own identity, its own specialness about it, and it was a big part of the fun of MockCon for sure.
And that's one of, I guess I want to say, one of the few times where the town and gown really mix too. I mean, the town comes out to see Washington and Lee on parade.
I think the town thoroughly enjoyed and enjoys it. It's more of a civic event than a Washington and Lee event, and they know it's coming, and those streets are lined even now, and if you get a break on the weather, the crowds are very large, but it's built up a reputation over the years, so they're anxious to get out and see what the crazy students are going to do this year.
Let's see, you've seen MockCon from both vantage points, as a student and up on the podium. Tell us about your experiences as an alum attending and speaking at the MockCon. You had a role speaking at the Mock Convention, or had roles.
I did. I was asked to gavel the opening of one of the sessions of the 2012 Mock Convention. I also have been involved in taking student leaders of MockCon to alumni chapters in connection with the 2012 convention to make the pitch and to solicit alumni support. I've been struck by the professionalism of today's students in the way they approach this, the level of organization, preparation. I remember going to meetings at which, laptops snap open and somebody's taking minutes, and they're in my inbox when I get back to the office from that meeting with nothing but student leaders. It's very impressive. It's certainly grown in sophistication and technology and media. When you are there on the convention floor and look out and see the amount of, you might say, cutting edge technology that is in and part of the convention these days, I'm not sure we had much of any of that in the day. In fact, I'm sure we didn't, but students are all over the floor with wireless mics, and films are rolling, and national crews are on scene, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't mean to say that it was sort of minor league in the 70s and is now major league in every way, but the student piece, watching them do what's necessary to plan and stage one of these is really impressive, and frankly makes you proud to be part of it.
Those students are getting a tremendous education. I mean, you were talking about fundraising. We spoke with a girl who was part of that effort, just going to different alumni chapters and having the experience. You can't study that in a textbook.
You'll hear alumni say this in many different contexts, but when you see today's students in that setting, on their feet, apparently without notes of any kind, just presenting and talking about the convention and what they're doing and how excited they are, you really just want to clap, because they're totally into it. They are vested. They know what this means to W&L culturally and over the long term. So again, you sort of split with pride, and all I do is show up, introduce them, and get out of the way as quickly as I can, because alumni want to see students. They want to know from them what the convention is all about and get that sense of conviction and commitment to the exercise. It's really quite something, and happily, alumni have also been generous in supporting the exercise over the years, so the budget is sufficient to allow them to do what they want to do and bring the speakers they'd most like to have. It's very impressive.
It's amazing to me that they are given, I mean, complete latitude. The students themselves are in charge of this huge budget. They're actually handling real money and throwing this thing by themselves. I mean,
That's an interesting point. In that sense, it's not unlike the way our honor system is administered. You know, we believe in our young people. That comes with a great deal of responsibility on their part, but they step up. And as most people know, the leaders for any mock convention are picked a full 2+ years before that convention will take place, really closer to 3. And the work begins. And it is a sustained effort over a long period of time with others brought in ultimately to make it happen. But yes, Professor Connolly and others are not telling students what to do with mock convention. They have access to our historical records and they know of it, but it's handed to them, you might say in trust, generation to generation, and off they go. And then there comes the moment when there it is. It's really quite something.
and this is on top of their regular classwork and classes.
Oh, certainly.
You know, that's-
Yes, yes.
That's incredibly impressive. Do you know any personal stories of maybe any alums who were so struck with the experience that they wanted to go into politics, or maybe the people who were working with the money decided to go into the money side of business, or, you know, does it spark off careers?
I would be stretching, but I've heard Senator Warner comment about that, and we've actually researched the number of Washington and Lee folks who are involved in public life or elected office in some way or other. It's an astonishing figure. Now, can I name Joe and Sally and others that I know would tell you, yep, I got the spark at mock convention? No. But I think W&L, because of mock convention and because of the strength of the politics department and that part of the liberal arts curriculum here, it is a place that attracts people who are interested in it from the get-go, and then they have this marvelous opportunity to live it and drink it in the MockCon experience, whether it is the political chair or the head of fundraising or the other things that are required to pull this off. It's a hands-on thing, and there's no question it is a launching platform for our students.
A lot of very important people are drawn to campus, and actually the students have a chance to interact with, you know, political leaders. You know, last time we had, what was it, James Carville and Mary Matlin, and politicians, and so that's an incredible experience for them as well.
It's incredible for the students, and I think it's an incredible experience for the students to watch the parade of, as you say, national figures. The interesting point to me is to watch those speakers and to talk with them after they have been here and seen it for themselves. You know, all of these begin with initial inquiries into that person's office through a staff person, trying to assure them of the value and legitimacy of MockCon. If you get over that hurdle, you might say, and many, many times we do, there's still a sense that some of them really don't have any idea. They've just agreed to do it, and oh, won't this be nice? And I can identify a number of those folks who literally come away shaking their heads, saying, wow, I really didn't have any idea, and I've never seen anything like this. So it's something that once you see it and are part of it, you get it, and you get what it means.
We've been to several mock conventions, just from our point of view. I'm always surprised, there's always one speaker that seems to really connect with the students, and it's not someone I would have guessed ahead of time. The Keys, was that his name? The remember?
Alan Keyes.
Alan
Mhm.
Keys, and all the
Mhm.
students were shaking their keys.
Mm-hmm.
Or this last time, McCotter, the man, he played the guitar.
Oh, who was that?
Governor of Kansas?
I
No,
don't remember, but,
was it governor?
I mean, again, he may be the Jimmy Who of,
Yeah.
2016, but the students loved him. I mean, he did, he walked out with a guitar and,
Well, the students will tell you in short order who's a great speaker and who is really getting through to them. It's as simple as the applause meter. And it's not always the biggest figure that the convention has. In fact, frequently it's not. But it is fun to watch sort of up-and-comers come to Washington and Lee and step up to that microphone, and the electricity factor is measurable pretty quickly. Within a few minutes, whether somebody is on and connecting with the students. And keep in mind, these students are really bright. Many of them are themselves all over the political issues of the day. They're not going to be fooled, and they're sort of weary of the age-old stuff that they've heard time and time again. So they're looking for freshness, new ideas, conviction, and when it happens, it's sort of the electricity in the arena, and it's really something to see. But yes, you can feel it.
that was actually gonna be one of my questions is, do you have any advice for, people coming to speak at the convention? Any ways that they could? You don't have to, I've gone off track.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. I would say this to a prospective speaker at our convention: take it seriously. Be confident that this is the real deal. This is not a passing fancy. This is not 3 minutes of hoopla and call it a day. It's something you'd be proud to be associated with. It also has very clear demonstrated potential to help your profile through the media coverage that descends on Lexington, Virginia for a few days. And I can promise you one thing for sure: you will thoroughly enjoy it, and you'll come away feeling a lot better about what we sometimes call today's young people, because our young people are quite something in staging this convention and the things that they do to make all of this come together. So be confident. Don't worry about wasting time in Lexington. It's a terrific experience, and I've heard that from a number of past speakers.
That's great. As Executive Director of Alumni Affairs, does the MockCon come up in conversations with other alumni, obviously? Any secondhand stories worth telling us? Names withheld to protect the innocent.
Well, I made the point earlier about the development of institutional MockCon memory. I think it is true that these conventions build on each other, both those that preceded yours and those that come after you graduate. So alumni of almost any age don't take very long to talk about Vice President Barkley dying at the podium. Some of them have had nothing to do with that. They certainly weren't there. They know about it, and they have adopted that almost as a story of their own. The other one that certainly makes the rounds is Bill Clinton coming to Lexington and winding up on the stage at Zalman's Pavilion playing his saxophone. That much we know for sure is true. It really happened. And lots of people then start there and embellish that story with their own version of what else may or may not have happened. I'm not going there, but the Clinton and Barkley stories are prominent for lots and lots of alumni. And then the parade. The parade almost always comes up. Remember the fill in the blank float. Or I was part of the Montana float and we did X. So it's more a collection of memories grabbed from different periods of time than it is my particular memory about that day in 1972 or another year.
How important do you think the mock convention is today? We talked about the value for the students, but potential speakers, national acclaim. So I'm actually going to ask you, why should this continue? I mean, is it difficult to? It gets more expensive each time. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything gets more expensive each time. What is the value of continuing it?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think it is truly a unique learning experience. Unique is overused. How can it be unique? Well, in today's college campus world, to our knowledge, it is unique. It's unique in its scope, in the fact that it has been going on now for over 100 years, in its record of accuracy, and in how it's done. So it's a learning experience, not limited to the top 5 people who are the executives of the convention. So I think it's learning. I think it is unique, and unique means perhaps more at W&L than it does at some other places. We like being a little different, and we like having things that we can claim as our own and be immensely proud of. MockCon is one of those things, and it binds people to the place while they're students, and certainly in later years, and that's one of the best reasons for the creation of the historical documentary. You know, it's time we sort of salute the impact that this thing has had for now over a century. So is it worth preserving? You betcha. And I can't imagine anybody who's been through it saying anything else, because it's memorable, you learn, and it leaves a mark.
Directly to encourage speakers to attend this renowned event.
I
We
think
did a
we
little
did
bit of
that.
that.
I think we did that.
Is
Yeah.
there anything else that we want to add?
No, I think we'd be risking overkill, but you all feel
Gilding the
Joe.
lily.
Yes,
Yes, gilding the
I got
lily.
it.